What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Dripping Creativity Podcast. Today we have the amazing SJ Sparkles in the house. This has been one of the most awesome interviews. I can't wait for you all to hear it. In the meantime, don't forget to like and subscribe, all that fun shit. Check out the Wednesday show, Inks and Lattes. We have so many new things coming down the pipeline. I can't wait to share with you all. And now, we're just going to get right into it. SJ, why don't you introduce yourself?
All right. Well, my name is Stefan Sparkles. I'm from New Zealand, which is all the way down on the other side of the world from most of the people probably listening to this podcast. I have a wonderful wife and 3 cats, and I like to write man's books. Yes, is probably the easiest, sort of biggest thing about me. I like reading as well, obviously. But other than that, I just sort of house husband around, if that makes sense. Like, my wife does a lot of their work and stuff because I have autism, ADHD, and stuff like that. So it's a little bit more difficult for me to do what's probably known as proper work. But no, I get to do this because of her, which is just amazing.
That's fantastic. I love that. So I did a little research there, checked out your website and all that stuff, which is fantastic. I highly suggest everyone go and check it out.
Thank you.
In your bio, you mentioned your passion for music.
Yes.
Let's talk more about your background there.
Well, I started off as a choir boy way back in the day when I was a wee Catholic boy, and ever since then I've been fascinated by music. It's just something that seems to create a sort of state of mind in me depending on the music itself. Like, I know that a lot of people feel different things when music happens and stuff, but like, there are certain songs that'll like kick me off and like make me cry, or like I will laugh or stuff like that. Like, I'm a huge fan of Weird Al because I'm fascinated by music that makes you laugh out loud. Yeah. Like, it's just like being able to create something where you listen to it and also laugh and enjoy it. It's just, it's very cool when it comes to music, because, you know, a lot of music is that sort of driving sort of, don't laugh at us, we're taking this very seriously sort of thing, which is great when you get someone like Weird Al doing that. But I've always sort of enjoyed creating as well, and so I've done a little bit of music writing in my time, mostly electronic and stuff, but it's always been like a huge part of how I sort of express myself. So like the music that I listen to and the sort of emotional responses that I get, I can kind of use music to help myself sort of get into different emotional states. It's quite fun. Sorry, rambling. Yeah.
Hey man, welcome to the show. Like, literally everybody knows at this point that's what this show is.
That's what we're doing. Excellent. Yeah.
I grab you and I just let you go. Run free. It's fine. Right. Go for it.
I'll be slightly less nervous about just going for it. All right, excellent.
So going all the way back there, I myself a huge Weird Al fan for years. When I was about 7 or 8, it was one of the first things my dad ever made me was a mixtape, and it was all Weird Al songs on one side, and on the other side was comedy songs like Shaving Cream, Boomerang Won't Come Back, shit like that. Like, it's just
Cows with Guns.
I memorized that entire tape back and front. Like, oh god,
amazing.
So I very much understand that, and then with the whole love of music going forward with emotion, that's a huge part of my upbringing. Like, I've said this to many people before, music has saved my life several times.
Absolutely.
Like me, I'm big on lyrics. I love good in-depth emotional lyrics, and then you throw on some good music on top of that. It can create any emotion. So
it's so good.
that goes into the whole creating side of things. When you're crafting your romance novels, how much of a factor does the music play in? Like, is it something you craft specific playlists for, or?
It's a good question. So I listen to a lot of music while writing, of course, and depending on what I feel like writing, I will put music on. So I've been I have been re-editing, I guess, like going over my first book that I wrote, and doing it again, because when I first wrote it, I didn't know what I was doing. And because I've never written until last year, never is a little bit, but yeah. And so I only really started last year and wrote this book, and during the writing of that book, I listened to all this different classical music that helped me sort of bring out the different emotional beats and stuff in that book and do all that kind of stuff. And now this year, going back with all the stuff that I've learned over the year, like how you edit, just that simple editing and formatting and stuff like that, because publishing was just a proof that I could do so, if that makes sense. And no, literally I cannot express how I had no idea what I was doing. Like, people are like, oh, you wrote a book? And I'm like, yeah, I actually didn't know how hard out it was until I did it. And then people were like, wow. And I was like, oh, okay, this is sort of a big deal. I should probably take this quite seriously if I'm going to be doing this. So I went and learned how to do it.
If there's one thing I've learned about us ADHDers, it's we go in just assuming we're going to be amazing at something. And
True.
if we do, that's fantastic. But most times it's just end up with us quitting and going, you know what? It wasn't good immediately. I'm out.
Yep.
So,
So much. There's so many things that I've picked up and been like, nope, see you later. Yeah.
Guitar. I have tried to learn guitar like 6 times, and because I can't master it in like an hour, it's like, no, I'm done with this. Put it back.
Yeah. I that's my ADHD thing. I've learned how to play guitar and like bass and like drums and stuff, just because like there's been certain points in my life where I've had access to those instruments. So it's just it's time to pick those up and learn them. But yeah, I understand not being able to do something, because like, there's so many things that I can't think of any right now because of that ADHD thing. We're now trying to think of something. Well, I don't think that's an ADHD thing. I think that's just a human thing when you're on the spot trying to think of one.
Well, that's the whole thing. But yeah, no, I mean, I'm sure 90% of all the listeners here understand exactly what we're talking about. It seems to be a very common. So I was thinking about this, complete side tangent here, but we're vibing right now. There's that section of people that are like, oh my god, ADHD is just now so it's a hip word, it's a trendy thing, and it's like, well, no, because if you stop and you think about it, everybody that you see that is telling you they have ADHD, they're all creators, they're all celebrities, they're all in things that are literally designed for ADHD people.
It's true.
So yeah, you hear about it, but it's literally the vocal minority. Like, the amount of people that actually have it is a lot less than it used to be. But it's in front of your face, because we all realize, shit, we're all the same. Yeah. Like, all of our brains are the same. So, so anyways. And I love how,
gonna keep going with that. I love how this huge connection just over the past couple of years, I guess, with ADHD and stuff, and how a lot of people from my generation and the generation above mine are all, I don't want to say angry, but like, we're all sort of starting to realize, like in our 30s, 40s, and even 50s, that like, we sort of have been dealing with this nonsense when we really shouldn't have to, sort of thing. And we're like, and I like this pushback that's coming, to be honest.
Well, I mean, like, I didn't get diagnosed until I was 32. Before that, I was clinically depressed. That's what everyone told me, was just I was severely depressed, and nothing I tried ever worked. So you just have to learn to deal. And I dealt kind of like, it wasn't dealing at all, but I
No.
survived. So hey, we got that going. And then finally had a psychologist who's like, oh, wait, no, I think you have ADHD. And I'm like, no, I don't. What the hell are you talking about? I'm not hyper. I'm none of those things. Like, sure, I go on little things. And then I did all the tests and all that. It's like, oh, son of a bitch. Oh, my life would have been so much fucking better if I had known this before. Holy shit. So needless to say, with my kids, I've been very monitoring them to watch them. Like,
awesome.
It's like, you know what, especially with parenting, and we can get into that right now. It's like when I was raising my kids, I didn't want a perfect child. I want somebody that was just a better version of me, right?
Yeah, it makes sense.
I can only give you what I know and show you the path, but you got to walk down there. I can't do the shit for you. So there you go. And just do it better than I did. I'll tell you where I messed up, how I fucked up, and how you can avoid it. If you do it my way, that's on you. But I'm trying, man.
Yeah, that's the thing, eh? Like, what's the it's a classic quote, was it? You can lead your kids to water, but you can't make them drink. Yeah, kind of thing, except when they're very young. Yeah. So I don't have any kids. Miss Sparkle and I got together basically. That was one of the reasons that we actually ended up together, was we both never really had one of those we want children things. And so I think that's actually been kind of good for us because of my mental health and all that kind of thing. And so, because if we go further back into family, I did post this on Threads, but I had an examination last week just about my mental health and stuff, and I've been diagnosed with complex PTSD from my childhood. So in short, because let's not get everyone all depressed and stuff, in short, childhood wasn't great. Came out of that not great, and have spent kind of the last sort of 20 years figuring that out. And then finally last week I sat down and they were like, yep, this is what's going on. You have this, it's time for you to get that sorted. So I'm kind of pleased that I didn't have a child because of the sort of mental state that I've been in. I haven't been able to give them the best life that I think I could give them, and I still don't at the moment, but that could change, and because I got the snip, we've both sort of talked about adopting and stuff, because I'm very much one of those people who, like, I've never worried about what's that whole progeny thing. It's just never been my thing. I understand it very much. Evolution's a thing, and evolution wants us to keep on going. But I have 3 cats, so and they are wonderful. So I'm going to talk about them as if they're my kids for a moment. Actually, the first cat that I ever had saved my life, because I was in a pretty dark place, and then it turned up, and I had to be sort of like, if I want this little wee creature that I adore to survive, I should probably survive too. And so, and so that sort of brought me up and out enough to sort of kickstart the whole sort of deal. I can actually kind of point to that as sort of a kickstart from the down to the up.
Absolutely fantastic. I love, well, and it makes sense, because I mean, my kids did that for me as well. They were not planned. I can tell you this now. Not planned. But I love them to death. Wasn't in the cards.
Absolutely.
But we deal with what we get when we're 20,
Yeah, absolutely. Yes.
Anyways, I think that's having that grounding point. Because with the ADHD, what I've noticed is if you're doing it for yourself, it's almost impossible. It is very difficult to feel worthy enough to do something, right?
Absolutely.
Whereas if you have that grounding thing, that person that's relying on you, that animal, that whatever it is that is like, oh no, I need to do it for this focus, you'll get it done like that, and it'll be perfectly fine, and it won't matter. So having that, I think, is fantastic. I absolutely love that.
It's been amazing, because I've never not had a cat since, and so we ended up So she unfortunately passed away a little earlier than we wanted her to, but we ended up with her sister for I think it was 17 years, like the whole length of my relationship at that point in time with Mrs. Sparkle was with that cat as well. And so that was my cat's sister. But we've ended up with 3 boys. 2 of them are from the SPCA, and we call them brothers because they both came from the same mother, right? SPCA. And one of them turned up at my doorstep, skin and bone, and was just like, please help. And I was like, well, all right, come on in.
Get in here.
Let's go. Although it was a little bit longer than that. He was very skittish, and he would not let you touch him.
Yeah.
Give him food, and he'd stay outside in like a little spot. And I was like, I'm just gonna let him do his thing. He's hungry. He comes and eats. But one day I managed to pat him on the head, and I don't know if the poor guy had been patted properly before, because as soon as I just gently gave him a wee pat, he was like, this is incredible, what's this? And now he literally cannot stay away from me. He has to be close, and I'm literally right now petting him because he's sitting there staring at me all forlorn, being like, why are you there?
That's freaking adorable. Oh.
Cute. Yeah.
I had a very timid, scared, hurt cat as well, so I know. It's just.
Yes, indeed. Yeah, I'll get a little
all the
choked
tears,
out,
all the tears. No, okay, let's change topic.
Let's go somewhere else.
Okay,
Yeah,
okay, pulling it back, getting back into the creative stuff. So
yes.
You seem to have a nice thing with the mid 1800s.
Yes.
What drew you to that era of everything?
I keep on half changing the subject every time. I sort of have, I'm pretty sure I have aphantasia, which is that can't see pictures in your head thing. And so I've always enjoyed kind of visual stimulus. And so there's something about like the Regency era in particular, just the whole neoclassical sort of style. There's this whole sort of fascinating sort of way that they decided that they were going to emulate the classical Greek sort of thing, but do it in this very strange sort of like, let's have everyone's waistlines go up to underneath their bosoms and have it all draped down and all flowy and stuff. And the kind of funny thing about the Regency era is it was sort of like a direct result of that. We're going to go out and look at ruins sort of group of people from like the late 1700s, and they brought back all these fancy like stories of these beautiful white columns and all this beautiful stuff. And so they never even stopped to consider that it would be coloured in, like that it would be painted. And so you've got this whole sort of era of like white Corinthian sort of columns, and everything's like white, and that's sort of where they started doing those spackle ceilings and stuff like that. It's just crazy. All the things that they came up with just to sort of emulate their sort of big idea of like neoclassical sort of things, because like the Greeks and the Roman classical stuff fascinates me as well. So like that line where like they've gone from all the way back there and have like taken it, and so yeah, the fashion and all that, like the dandy fashions, that's what I'm thinking of. That's what they call it. Like it was an actual thing. Like they were called dandies. And okay, but it always amuses me because every time I write it down, I always just think, like, should I write this down? Because it makes me giggle every time. Like I'm always like dandy, and then keep going. But like it's just a way you describe the costume, the attire of the time. And so you have all these like insane sort of requirements for like what you need to wear, like how you wear your cravat and all that sort of thing. Like you've got to like, if you've tied it this way, then you need one thing, or if you've moved this way, you've done another. And like and like the fans, yeah, the fans, as in like the waving fans. Sorry, just in case I don't have fans yet, but they're so crazy because like there was a whole language that you used with the fan, and so depending on how you held it or like what you did with it, you'd be telling a man what you wanted from him and all that kind of stuff. And so all these like just tiny little rules and things that they had put together that you couldn't ever possibly imagine to get right, like ever in like a million years. Like there's this fellow famously used to take 2 hours to get dressed. His name is Beau Brummel, and he was this fellow that with the Prince Regent, who used to watch him get dressed because he liked watching this fellow get dressed, which is partly why the whole Regency period is fraught with what it is. And so there was this guy who had just been like 2 hours getting himself particularly dressed and then go about his day, but you know, he had time to do it. And so all this cool, like, keep wanting to call it costumes, but it's just what they wear. That wasn't costumes.
Just clothing. Just clothing.
Yeah, just their clothing. And the clothing that they wore, it was just this insane sort of, everything has to be just so, everything has to be put in its place and all that kind of stuff, and like have everything. If you don't have it quite exactly how it's meant to be, then you're like not quite part of the society, you're not quite getting it right. And so that fascinates me enough to not want to do it. And so I write sort of middle class sort of stuff where like, so I have my characters be relatively middle class because that's fun. And they have relatively nice clothing for nice events, but the average person didn't run around with all the stuff that they had back in the day. That was very much sort of how we have fashion these days. Like we don't have everyone running around doing all that fashion stuff. We'll just kind of chill out in our own thing. So it's cool writing about that and figuring out what just the average person wore, because that's a lot harder to figure out, it turns out, because no one cares what you and I wear when there's actual fashion models out there.
This is true. This is true.
Yeah, so, you know, we just sort of trundle along behind the zeitgeist. Yeah, and it's so fascinating how all this clothing and like all these different visual sort of requirements just to like get by on your day to day. It's just so complicated and hard out there. Like you could probably write whole books just on someone screwing it up, sort of stuff, and like just and it's like yeah.
So historical accuracy is very important. You put the time into the research to make sure things
Yes.
are as close as possible, which then
Try to.
with the time frames that you're dealing with here, how are you managing to incorporate more empowerment with the female characters and all of that, and more gender equity, equality, not equity?
So that was super important to me when writing, because equality is a huge thing for me. So I've only sort of just begun. So the plan is, so I wrote this romance book, but I still love the characters. They're still wonderful. And so instead of giving them a happily ever after and sending them on their way, I'm just going to keep going, writing about their relationship and how it builds. And so as part of that, we're going to have the female character, her name's Anna, and she is going to slowly learn that a lot of the stuff that she's been told about society kind of doesn't matter, because her husband, Jack, he's neurodivergent, and he was a soldier, but like never cared about that sort of thing. And so she is learning from him about sort of how ridiculous the whole sort of you can't do this thing, you're a woman stuff, because Jack has this sort of idea, like he doesn't understand why she's not doing just what he does. Like that's sort of how I've written the tale. Like there's a man who literally is a feminist because he doesn't understand how you could not be one. So that's quite funny, because it sort of puts a twist on the whole, this woman wants to be free, because she does, but she is she grew up wanting to have a family. She grew up wanting to do all that, but unfortunately she ended up not being able to. So she ended up kind of sequestering herself away, and then she met this guy, and he was like, I don't care that you can't have a family, let's just do our thing. And so she's sort of going from that sort of preconceived attitude about what she had to do as a woman, like, you know, like you grow up, you get found by a man, and then you have your family and you do all that kind of stuff. And the thing is, though, is that she like truly wanted a family, because it's okay to want a family. I think it's fine for a woman to be like, I want to do this. I definitely love being a house husband, so I can understand when a woman is like, I like doing housework. Like, I don't think they should be doing it if they don't want to be, but you know,
if you want to do it, do it.
Yeah,
you know,
do it.
Like that.
Yeah, and so like that's me. So he's just like, why are people talking to you like that? Like, there's like little bits in my books where Anna will say something, or someone will be like, what's going on? And Anna will be like, oh, this is what's happening. And then someone will look to Jack to like get him to confirm, you know, the whole, oh, does the husband agree? And the fun thing is that at the moment, it's very early days, at the moment he just gets kind of grumpy and just tells people like, I'm pretty sure we just heard what she said, like, what are you talking? And he like literally does not understand, and it makes him furious. It's great fun. Yeah.
So really, instead of because you have a lot of other authors that would take the concept and inject it into the era as a whole. So it's just, you know, it's always there now in this world, whereas you are still approaching it from a realistic standpoint, but just also from the viewpoint of there's no way in hell everybody in this time frame is going to be thinking like this.
Yes.
There's always going to have the outliers, the strong women who want to.
Yes.
I love that.
Yes.
That's a beautiful way to do it. I very much appreciate it.
Thank you. Because like the women from that era fascinate me. They're so fascinating. Like Mary Wollstonecraft. I realized I've never actually said that name out loud.
Dude, I come across that like daily now, where it's like, I don't think I've ever said this name, and I'm gonna butcher it. So I don't.
I'm sorry, everyone. So she was insanely intelligent. Mary Somerville, she was insanely intelligent. She basically figured out that there was another planet out past all the other ones, and was like, there'll be a planet there. And then they found, I think they found Uranus all the way out there, or it might have been Neptune. I'm sorry, everyone. I'm not. I've got that little ADHD thing, where I know enough but not quite.
It's all good, man.
And so like all of these women were definitely outliers, definitely people who, you know, bucked the trends and did all that kind of stuff. And so Wollstonecraft is especially interesting to me because her husband dearly loved her, and her first sort of foray into life did not go well, and then she ended up with the guy that basically was like, I'll just support you, right? Unfortunately, he loved her so much that, I know that sounds weird, that he wrote a sort of biography of her when she died, and like told everyone it. Unfortunately, he was very honest in it, and so it talked about what she actually did, and everyone was like, well, she's an awful person. And then for like 100 years there was just this whole sort of, this woman was yuck sort of attitude, and then finally like everyone was like, you know, what she did isn't actually that bad, you know, we could probably not be dicks about this. And so like that's one of those super interesting things to me, how like one sort of person, because if a man, again with the feminist thing, if a man had done the things that she had done, no one would have batted an eye, no one would have cared. No one cares that a man's going to go out and do the things that she did. which is also insane to me. I've never understood that, which I think is partly why I'm writing it as well, because it just makes no sense how you could have a man being allowed to do a thing, and if a woman can do it too, her not being allowed. I was like, where does that come from?
100%. We will
where
find.
is that coming from?
Anyways, before we keep going on that topic, we're actually running low on the time now, which is fantastic.
Oh, we are. Oh.
It's going so fast, man. This is awesome.
So
we actually only covered about half of what I wanted to do. So
right.
I think what we're going to do, as I have done with a couple other people, is we're going to have to set up a part 2 later on, and have you back, definitely, especially as you get closer to the new book. Why can't I think of the name
Thank you for
now?
choosing me.
That's it. There's a me in there. There's a choosing.
Yeah.
What order are the words? I can't remember.
Yeah.
Thank you for choosing me. I know that is. So is that out now or coming out?
So the fun thing about being an indie author is that you can sort of adjust things as you go. That's quite neat. So I started off as sort of trying to do it as like a 4-part novella series. So I've released the first part, and I've realized that may not be working. But that's all right. I'm an indie author, so I can change it up. And so what it is it's a continuation of the first book, pretty much straight after it ends. Which again is part of like the whole I didn't know what I was doing, because I have a feeling that I wouldn't have published the book and I would have kept going, sort of thing like that, but I didn't. So this next book is their journey to, I guess, kind of don't want to spoil the end of the last book.
No, yeah, we don't need to know the details. It's okay, but it's coming. That's where we're at.
Yes, so the first one's out, and that's basically the aftermath of what happened at the end of the first book. And I really enjoy writing about happiness and joy and stuff like that. The first book was definitely a therapy book, right? Like you'll probably read it if you do end up reading it, dear listener. A lot of the stuff in that is from my personal life and how I felt and stuff like that growing up. A lot of the things in that book are real, as in like they happened, I just put them into 1816 sort of thing. And so the second book is a continuation of that, but now the joy of being together and the joy of like having that. And so in this book they are trying to get to where they need to go and are not prevented, but nearly prevented multiple times in a sort of star-crossed lover way, where they just want to be together, and other people are like, you can't do that, you can't be that way, you have to be this way. Because one of the major themes in the books is the fact that Anna cannot get pregnant, which is a huge sort of deal for a lot of people. And so that being sort of like an open secret about her changes all the dynamic about how people look at her and how people sort of deal with the woman who literally can't do the one thing that she's supposed to do, which is
time period shit. No.
So like writing about the antithesis of that, of someone who knows that she can't have children. She really wanted to have children. She wanted to do all that, and again, I'm down with all that, which is part of why I wrote it as well. I feel like there's a lot of this whole, for like the women who do want to have families and stuff, there's a lot of, hey, go out and do your own thing and stuff, and but I feel like, people who want families and who want to have that sort of life could be represented as well. But I made the unfortunate sort of result of that, her not being able to have a family and dealing with the fact that you can't, and Jack just does not care. So she's learning from that, but he's learning from her about his emotional states. Like, she's very emotionally mature, whereas Jack is not, because he like ran away from home and like joined the army and just got PTSD and came back. That's kind of his deal. So this next book is definitely the joy of being together and how like being in a relationship makes two people stronger, and how to like communicate and how to like be together, even if like you don't agree and things like that. If things are going bad and you have arguments and stuff, like I have arguments and stuff, and that they have a huge massive blow up and he says something very horrible and all that kind of stuff. But the way I write things is sort of like we have two adults who truly care about each other, and eventually they're going to think about what they can do to make amends, sort of thing. And like that sort of, I guess, relationship goals in general. Like as long as you're communicating, if things do go tits up.
So
If you're
definitely very romantic, all in all.
Yes. Yeah. Oh yes, I just love romance in general. It's just wonderful. Yeah.
I feel you. Granted, I usually go horror, so but I'm slowly dipping into the romance stuff now.
It's just lovely. I mean, I also write a very small amount of horror as sort of like an outlet for when I'm feeling very down.
It works. It works.
But, it does. It does. But I like channeling my depression and stuff into like romance and joy and things like that. It's just like, I think getting into a little bit of like art philosophy here, I think that there's a lot of like channeling things into like negative, I don't want to say negative emotions because like I don't like the positive and negative sort of thing. Like all emotions are equal, so like if you're feeling angry, it's okay to feel angry. And you're allowed to. I think the problem is the direction of the anger cannot be great many times. So like directing it into writing, say, a little excerpt where Jack and Anna have like a little cuddle and like talk about something important to them. Like that's it's therapeutic for me. Like that gets my anger out. It's just one of those things. But then sometimes I'll be like, I want to write about some demons running around and doing horrible things to people.
Well, yeah, no, and I mean that's okay. We're gonna have to save this.
Yes.
For part 2.
Yeah, I just looked at the time. I just
the problem is, you put 2 creators in a room, especially with our brains. We're just gonna keep going. Man. It's just
So we're gonna have to.
So yes, definitely a part 2.
Yeah.
First off, where can people find your current book?
So my current book is all digital stores. Yeah, you can get all digital stores. It's not on KU because I did the wide thing at the moment. But what I did do is I set it to $5 wherever I could internationally. So doesn't matter where you are, you should be able to find it for like 5 of your currency, wherever you are.
Perfect. And then where can everyone find you?
I'm on Threads mostly as SJ Sparkle author. And my DMs are always open if you want to say hello. Like I'm very happy to talk about anything. Like as we've just found. But yeah, I'm always happy to talk about things and just hang out and all that kind of stuff.
That is fantastic. Thank you so much for coming. This has been way too fast. We have so much more to talk about. So we're definitely going to do a part 2, and we'll follow up and we'll do all that. So thank you again. Have yourself a great day.
Yes, you too. All right, goodbye.
And that brings us to the end of another fantastic episode of Dripping Creativity Podcast. Thank you so much, SJ Sparkle. That was a fantastic chat. I loved everything about it, and I can't wait for part 2, 3, 4, and everything else. As for everybody still listening, thank you so much for being here. Please make sure to like and subscribe. Rate it on all the places that you happen to be watching it. That would be fantastic. Don't forget to check out the merch shop over at shop.creativecoffeecafe.com. I've been your host, Chris Corvin. You can find me everywhere at Chris of the Void. Until next time, stay creative, stay inspired. See ya.